could have whooped you if you hadn't tripped me.
The Beverly Hillbillies.
A poor farming family suddenly became billionaires with just one single gunshot. That's the crazy story of the Beverly Hillbillies. They left their remote mountain cabin and moved to glamorous Beverly Hills, bringing their wild laughter and down-to-earth charm with them. The whole city was left in culture shock, and America went absolutely crazy for them. But behind those seemingly fun, heartwarming episodes was a backstage full of drama. One actress actually slammed her co-star in the head so hard that the crew had to stop filming immediately to check if he was still conscious. A veteran star publicly destroyed his co-star's political campaign out of pure personal hatred. And the most heartbreaking secret of all, the real reason the show was abruptly killed off while it was still dominating the ratings. Today I'm pulling back the curtain to reveal the 20 darkest and most shocking secrets from the set of The Beverly Hillbillies, the funniest sitcom in television history, yet one that was hiding far more turmoil than viewers ever knew. 20. Max Baer Jr. sues CBS for using his character's name without permission. In the hearts of millions of viewers, Jethro Bodine was not just a role. He was the embodiment of innocence and purity, a virtual friend who provided magical comfort after stressful working hours. Therefore, when news of actor Max Baer Jr.'s prolonged lawsuit broke, the public was left in shock. They were stunned to realize that behind that goofy smile lay a harsh commercial reality filled with cold, pragmatic calculations. It all began like a detective movie script while driving through Nevada. Max Baer Jr. stood frozen as he saw a chain of restaurants boldly displaying the name Jethro's in the middle of the street. He stopped dead in front of the advertisement, feeling a deep sense of betrayal as the image linked to his entire life was being torn apart for profit without a single word of permission. As lawyers turned over the dusty files, the situation became even worse. An almost unbelievable blunder had occurred. CBS had accidentally forgotten to renew the copyright paperwork, causing a significant portion of Season 1 and Season 2 to fall straight into the public domain. This mistake cleared the way for a booming black market, where low-quality bootleg DVDs flooded everywhere. Some versions even replaced the original music with cheap melodies, because the producers lacked the budget for music rights. Facing this devaluation, Max Baer Jr. fiercely embarked on an uncompromising legal war. For him, this was not just about money, but the right to protect the dignity of the name that defined his career. 19. The Rural Purge. A death sentence at the peak of glory. I still vividly remember those golden evenings, the whole family squeezed together on an old sofa, eyes glued to a small flickering TV screen. We would eat fruit and laugh hysterically at every clumsy step of the Clampett family in the heart of magnificent Beverly Hills. The Beverly Hillbillies back then was not merely an entertainment program. It was an invisible thread tightening the affection between parents, grandparents, and us. That is why when I heard the show was being canceled, while still dominating the ratings, I felt as though a piece of my most beautiful childhood memories had been cruelly and irrationally stolen. The truth behind that sudden end was a dark chapter in television history known as the Rural Purge. It was a cold administrative decision from the air-conditioned boardrooms of CBS. Executives at the time were obsessed with rebranding to attract a younger, sophisticated urban audience, the demographic most coveted by advertisers. Despite tens of millions of hearts still beating in rhythm with the rustic, sincere charm of the Clampett clan, the show and its siblings like Green Acres or Petticoat Junction were sent to the chopping block. A veteran screenwriter bitterly recalled the moment the cancellation news dropped on his desk, just as the team was full of enthusiasm preparing for the next season. One crew member cried out in despair. The show didn't die because the audience abandoned it. It died because it no longer fit the luxury image the network wanted to project. It was a painful testament that in the world of television, the emotions and loyalty of viewers are sometimes just meaningless numbers in the face of business objectives. 18. Ultra-cheap filming location. Only $500 per day. Every time the theme song played and the image of the splendid mansion appeared, I couldn't help but dream of that extravagant place. To a child back then, the Clampett Mansion was like a palace that only existed in modern fairy tales. But the reality was much more interesting. That mansion actually exists in the prestigious, wealthy neighborhood of Bel Air. To save on the budget, the film crew executed a brilliant negotiation renting this place for an astonishingly low price, only $500 per filming day. However, behind that bargain price was a rigid condition from the homeowner that the specific address must never be revealed in order to preserve the final piece of their home. Nevertheless, the presence of a film crew with tons of equipment and a massive team every week soon caused the promise of secrecy to vanish like smoke. Neighbors began to gossip, and in the blink of an eye, the location spread like wildfire. Only a few weeks later, the mansion's gates were constantly besieged by crowds of enthusiastic fans, turning the place into a chaotic, spontaneous tourist spot. The homeowner found themselves in a laughing through tears situation as their quiet nest suddenly became the center of attention. To cope, the crew had to implement a hit-and-run strategy. Many recording sessions took place in extreme haste, with the staff having to operate with the speed of a military maneuver to complete the scenes before the crowds could arrive to swarm the set. 17. Buddy Ebsen publicly sabotaged Nancy Culp's election campaign. I always thought Buddy Ebsen and Nancy Culp were close friends on screen because their chemistry in every scene was undeniable. I was especially impressed by the moments they shared together, with the harmony and connection between them, serving as proof of a true friendship. However, when I learned that in real life, Buddy Ebsen and Nancy Culp were actually enemies, I was both surprised and a little puzzled. When Culp decided to run for Congress, many people in the crew assumed the two would maintain polite attitudes as the unwritten rule of Hollywood in the 60s. But Buddy unexpectedly went on the radio and said directly, "I don't think Nancy is suitable for that position." Someone in the studio quietly asked, "Are you sure you want to broadcast that?" Buddy simply replied, "I say what I believe." When she listened back to the broadcast, Culp stayed silent and said one sentence, "I will remember this." A technician said that the entire set froze that day, the atmosphere so heavy that anyone walking through paused. In Hollywood at that time, it was nearly unheard of for one actor to publicly oppose a co-star. A crew member recalled Nancy was very restrained, but her eyes that day could not hide anything. That small incident spread through the studio hallways within hours, and from that point on, their relationship never returned to what it was. 16. The record of climbing to rank number 1, the fastest in history. When the first episode aired, CBS only hoped the show would stay stable for a few weeks. No one imagined an explosion was waiting ahead. The ratings report sent to the control room made the whole team freeze in the third week. The name Beverly Hillbillies jumped straight to number 1. A coordinator said, "I thought the meter was broken." The editor next to him looked at the chart and said, "No, it's correct." The irony is that at the moment the show accelerated, the fastest the United States had just gone through a major shock: the assassination of President Kennedy. Many people were unsure if the audience still had the mood to watch comedy. But when the statistics came in, the answer was very clear. Viewers came to the show as a place to breathe. A production supervisor recalled they needed something light, simple, not forced. And Hillbillies accidentally became that. On set, the crew received the news during a break. Max Baer Jr. laughed. 3 weeks. "What shortcut did we take?" Buddy Ebsen replied. "No shortcut, just the right time." The overwhelming success forced CBS to adjust its schedule, while the writing team exclaimed, "We have to keep this pace even though we don't understand how it happened so fast." 15. Granny really did hit Jethro on the set. In the days before special effects or safety padding, everything on screen was done for real. And that simplicity created the warm feeling of a time long gone. What few people know is that Irene Ryan, who played Granny, actually hit Max Bear Jr. in most scenes. Not because she was too immersed in the role, but because Bear himself suggested, "Just hit me for real, I can take it." Ryan laughed and replied, "All right, you said it yourself." The director behind the camera sometimes reminded Irene to take it easy, but whenever the camera rolled, the smack still landed firmly, making the whole set burst into laughter. A crew member said that once Max rubbed his head and joked, "If I keep this up, I'll qualify for lightweight boxing." Ryan gently replied, "The audience has to believe Granny is really strict." Back then, direct sound recording was normal. The sound of wood hitting a head, heavy breathing, the scraping of shoes on the floor were all real audio. A cameraman remembered forever Mrs. Ryan was small, but her wrist was impressively strong. Every swing was very precise. Those details show the straightforward nature of classic television, where actors believed that only doing things for real could make the audience at home feel close. And also from those seemingly simple scenes, the crew began to run into many stranger behind-the-scenes stories. 14. The oil discovery was not scientifically accurate at all. The scene where Jed shoots into the ground and oil bursts up was one everyone remembered. But during technical discussions, the geology consultants often laughed when mentioning it. One person once said directly in a meeting, "Oil does not sit under the foothills. It doesn't exist like this." The director heard and only replied, "I know." But it's a fun detail, and it works well on screen. In reality, crude oil usually appears in plains, deserts, or continental shelves. A technician remembered the initial discussion. Should we make it more realistic? The writer answered, "No." The audience needs an immediate wow moment from the first minute. To create the oil burst effect, the crew used a black mixture pumped through underground pipes placed beneath fake soil. When the camera rolled, the director shouted, "Pump it up," and the liquid shot up like the real thing. In one test, the pressure was so strong that the whole crew was soaked from head to toe. Max Bear Jr. watched and joked, "If that were real oil, we'd all be millionaires." The effects supervisor could only shake his head. "I wish." Although not scientifically accurate, that detail still became an iconic opening moment. But those not correct but still done choices were only the beginning of the surprises to come, including a female actress who appeared in 15 episodes but whom the audience almost never recognized. 13. Sharon Tate appeared in 15 episodes, but no one realized. For those who were loyal viewers of the show, the moments tied to each scene and the actors who left a deep impression on the audience are unforgettable. Among them, the name Sharon Tate is likely a nostalgic memory, even though at the time she was just an overlooked face lost among countless minor roles. Unless you paid close attention to each scene, it's hard to realize that she appeared 15 times throughout the series. The reason is simple. Tate wore a brown wig dressed modestly and was made up in a style that was completely different from the radiant image audiences would later recognize her for. One crew member even remembered their first encounter. She walked up and I had to look twice to make sure it was Sharon. Throughout the filming, Sharon maintained a surprisingly humble demeanor, leaving no impression other than her quiet, simple presence. Once the director asked, "Would you like to change your hairstyle to make it easier to be recognized?" she simply smiled and replied, "No need. As long as the scene flows smoothly, that's what matters." Those simple moments now evoke deep nostalgic memories, reminding those who witness them of a Sharon Tate who was modest, completely different from the dazzling image she would later become known for. Years later, when the Manson tragedy occurred, some crew members were stunned to realize they had worked with her far more than they had remembered. A writer sadly shared she was so gentle. She moved through the set like a breeze. None of us imagined we'd one day have to speak her name in such a painful context. Looking back now, the memories of Sharon Tate in that show feel like a gentle breeze filled with nostalgia for a time long past. And it's impossible not to feel sorrow when thinking of a star who burned out too soon. 12. The first season is in the public domain. The fact that a TV season lost its copyright simply because of forgotten paperwork sounds like a joke, but it is exactly what happened here. When reviewing the files, a young lawyer discovered the renewal section for Season 1 completely blank. He ran into the meeting room and said, "We didn't file the renewal. The department head looked up." "You mean, it's in the public domain now?" The answer was only a silent nod. The consequences arrived immediately. A series of small companies began releasing low-priced DVDs of Season 1 each place with a different cover design. One distributor said directly in an industry meeting, "The law allows it, so we do it." What made things more confusing was that many releases had to replace the original music because they didn't have the audio rights, making the experience noticeably different. A technical crew member recalled, "I watched one version. The background music was replaced with cheap guitar sounds. It was strange." CBS scrambled to salvage whatever could be saved. A manager said, "We spent an entire week reviewing old files, only to find out that the mistake came from one employee taking a vacation on the exact day the submission was needed." A seemingly small incident, but one that created consequences lasting many years. 11. The role that killed the career. The Jethro curse. Surely you haven't forgotten the image of Jethro Bodine, the naive, hilariously funny young man from the Beverly Hillbillies. This character became an inseparable symbol of Max Baer Jr., bringing him fame and tremendous success. However, this very fame also created a kind of frame that was not so easy to escape from. After the series became famous, Baer was repeatedly rejected for other roles because his face made directors immediately think of Jethro. An agent once said directly, "They don't see you, they only see the character," Baer replied. "But I know how to do many other things." In one audition, the director watched for a few minutes and said, "You act well, but the audience will laugh the moment you walk out." Baer held in a sigh. "I can't change my face." The deadlock continued to the point where he changed direction. Writing scripts, directing, producing. A colleague said Max said, "If they don't give me another role, I'll write one for myself." And he really did. Baer's story became a classic example in Hollywood. When a character becomes too famous, sometimes the actor has to turn a different direction to survive. A producer said, "Some people think fame is luck, but sometimes it's a very long shadow." Baer did not deny the success of Jethro, but he also understood that to keep living with the profession, he had to find a new path. 10. Raymond Bailey. Mr. Drysdale had Alzheimer's disease. There are some characters who, with just a brief glance, can bring back an entire childhood. And for me, Mr. Drysdale is one of them. I don't know why, but every time he appeared on screen, I could almost hear my father's laughter, feel my grandmother's hand resting gently on my shoulder, and see my whole family coming together through the simplest little moments. Looking back now, I finally understand we weren't just watching a TV show. We were holding onto a piece of memory that time itself could barely touch. And maybe because those memories run so deep, revisiting the final working years of Raymond Bailey hits me harder than it might for most viewers, In the later seasons, he began forgetting his marks, missing his lines, and sometimes didn't even realize the camera was already rolling. Once, when the director called Raymond, "It's your turn," he paused, looked around in confusion, and quietly asked, "Which scene are we in?" An assistant rushed over to walk him through every detail as if guiding a brand new actor on his very first day. Yet Bailey still tried his best to maintain the dignified presence of Mr. Drysdale. A colleague recalled, "He didn't want anyone to see he was getting weaker. He always tried to smile even when he was clearly exhausted. There were days when he repeated one line 3 times. The director gently placed a hand on his shoulder and said, "It's all right, we'll go again." Bailey just nodded, a quiet sadness flickering in his eyes. When his illness worsened, the crew had no choice but to let him wrap early. A lighting technician remembered that day vividly. He went around shaking everyone's hands slowly as if trying to memorize every face. We knew he was trying to hold on to something. In the final months of his life, Bailey withdrew from the spotlight he had lived under for decades, spending his days in quiet solitude. For those of us who grew up with the show, looking back at the final images of Mr. Drysdale can stir a heaviness in the heart. A feeling I'm sure many of you understand. Share your thoughts below this video. Sometimes it's these shared memories that bring us a little closer together. 9. The Clampett family was actually billionaires. You may not know that, although on screen the Clampett family was portrayed as rural folks who stumbled into luck when converted to today's value. That number is not small at all. The fortune of $25 million in 1962 is equivalent to about $215 million today. By the time the series neared its end, the script pushed their assets up to $100 million, approximately $850 million in current value. A writer said, "We had to sit down and ask each other, how would mountain folks live with nearly $1 billion? A producer suggested just keep their behavior the same. The contrast is what makes it funny, and they did exactly that. Jed still dressed simply, Granny still kept her old pot, and Jethro boasted his math skills in ways no one understood." A prop staff member recalled, "We once proposed changing the furniture to match their new level of wealth, but the director said, 'Don't. The mismatch is what creates the charm.'" Interestingly, many viewers at that time did not realize the true scale of the Clampett fortune, because the million-dollar numbers were hard to imagine back then. Only when recalculated through inflation did this wealth become clear. 8. Buddy Ebsen, a career bigger than you think. Before becoming Jed Clampett Buddy, Ebsen had already built an artistic career spanning many decades. He had danced on Broadway stages, appeared in Breakfast at Tiffany's, played supporting roles in Twilight Zone, and even inspired the early movements of Mickey Mouse. Walt Disney once told him directly during a motion test, "The way you dance has a very strange rhythm. I want to put it into the new character." What fewer people know, Ebsen was originally chosen to play the Tin Man in The Wizard of Oz. But the aluminum powder used in the makeup caused him severe breathing problems. When the doctors demanded he stop immediately, he only said, "I still want to continue. But if I can't, then so be it." This incident forced MGM to replace him, leaving behind one of Hollywood's most famous almost roles. After Beverly Hillbillies, Ebsen did not stop. He continued to make his mark with the role of Detective Barnaby Jones for 8 consecutive seasons, a rare achievement for someone already famous beforehand. A director commented, "Buddy has inner strength. He doesn't rely on any single role." Looking back at his entire career, he was one of the few television actors who passed through many eras while still keeping his own identity. 7. Donna Douglas. Ellie Mae Clampett was chosen among 500 people I once heard that the casting session for the role of Ellie Mae Clampett that day lasted so long, the recruitment team had to take turns because of exhaustion. More than 500 candidates walked into the audition, but when Donna Douglas appeared, the room suddenly fell silent. She did not try to appear charming or overact. She simply walked in, smiled lightly, and said, "I really do take care of livestock in real life. Do you want me to hold a pig or a chicken first?" One director looked at a colleague and whispered, "She is the character." Douglas was born into a poor family in Louisiana, the exact background the character Ellie Mae needed. When trying the scene of petting animals, she handled it just like on a farm, making the animal trainer laugh. "I'm free today." Those who watched the audition tape said Douglas had what they called authentic, without acting, bright eyes, natural posture, not trying to impress. And when the decision was made, the producer only said one sentence: "She makes the audience like her from the first second." The role brought Douglas to national television, her face appearing constantly on magazine covers, yet she kept her same humble style. A crew member remembered during breaks she carried cats and dogs around the set like she was at home. That success paved the way for more behind-the-scenes stories, especially the thing critics at the time did not accept at all. 6. The age rumor that was completely misunderstood. The rumor that Granny was actually younger than Ellie Mae spread for years among fan clubs, especially back when there was no internet to fact-check anything. Some people even insisted they must have just done the makeup for fun. Granny doesn't look that old at all, but the truth was nowhere near that rumor. Irene Ryan, who played Granny, was actually 31 years older than Donna Douglas. The confusion began with the way Ryan worked. On set, she moved so quickly that one assistant once exclaimed, "She runs faster than the young actors." During one scene where Granny was supposed to get angry, the director joked, "Irene, if you keep this up, the kids won't be able to keep pace with you." She simply replied, "As long as I've got the strength, I'll keep performing." Her sharpness and energy often made viewers think she was aging backwards. Meanwhile, Donna Douglas, with her bright face, natural charm, and innocent acting style, often made people assume she was very young, even though she was already over 30 when the show began. A crew member remembered Donna looked like she had just reached her 20s. Standing next to Irene, the real age gap became even harder to guess. Back then, newspapers didn't help either. They loved highlighting Donna's beauty, but rarely mentioned the actress's real ages, unintentionally giving the impression that the age difference was much smaller than it actually was. When a reporter once asked Irene about the rumor, she just burst into laughter. "If I were as young as Donna, Hollywood would have to build a statue of me." And so the rumor lived on, stubborn and persistent. But the truth, as always, was much simpler. And from this small story alone, you can already tell the behind-the-scenes world of the Beverly Hillbillies was full of things far stranger than anyone imagined. 5. Jethro once played 2 characters. The idea for the character Jethro, the twin sister of Jethro, began as just a joke in the writer's room. But when they imagined Max Bear Jr. in a country-style dress, the whole group burst into laughter and decided to try filming it. Bear walked out wearing a wig and a long dress and said in a high voice, "I feel kinda stupid." The director replied, "The more stupid, the better." Bear committed himself to the role so much that the crew had to remind him to take breaks. One time he joked, "If my mother sees this, she'll probably lock the house." Jethron's female voice was not performed by him, but dubbed by Linda Henning. She said he acted with his body and I handled the voice. The two of us created a character that made everyone laugh. Jethron's costume was made so quickly that the seamstress had to say, "Don't move too much, just one loose stitch and it's done." During filming, the crew laughed so hard they had to stop many times. A cameraman said, "The way Max glanced sideways as Jethro, no one can forget it." An actor playing two roles is not rare today, but with the limited technology of the 60s, it was a major challenge. Doi jaila, bandichtieng an shokat muktu bonjen, mot juoktinchin, dua trenkas loi ja. Sua jak bietlai gioitin kuan nihanvat. Suniva gyuten guyen fong kaktan shuyen loi kwonne. 4. Animal training. The soul of Ellie Mae. Clampett Frank Inn was not an actor and never appeared on screen, but nearly every animal featured in the series was trained by him. From dogs, cats, and raccoons to even a kangaroo, every creature followed Inn's commands as if they were performing in a play. When the crew discussed a scene involving a kangaroo, an assistant worriedly asked, "Will it actually stay still?" Inn simply shrugged and replied, "Let me talk to it." During filming, he would lean down and whisper into the animal's ear, "Now stand here, look to the left." The director watching from the monitor would exclaim, "How does he get them to listen like that?" A crew member recalled that Inn never used harsh commands. He spoke in a soft voice and sometimes used treats hidden in his sleeves. They truly loved him, they said. Ellie Mae's scenes appeared so natural only because Inn stood just out of frame signaling every beat. Donna Douglas once said, "If it wasn't for Frank, I wouldn't have known how to soothe a raccoon." Once a cat ran off the set causing a panic. Inn just waved his hand and said, "Leave it to me." He stepped behind a truck and seconds later carried it back as if nothing had happened. 3. The mystery of Sonny's real last name. The character Sonny Drysdale appeared many times, but what has piqued the audience's curiosity for decades is that his real last name was never revealed. In the script, everything about Sonny was clear, his personality, relationships, and background, but when it came to his full name, the writers left it blank. Someone in the writing room asked, "What last name should we give him?" The head writer replied, "No need. Just leave it as is." This didn't stem from a desire to create a high-level mystery, but simply because the team wanted to keep Sonny in a half-socialite, half-free spirit state, unbound to any specific family other than his father, Mr. Drysdale. One editor noted, "If we added a surname, the character would have too many unnecessary details. We wanted Sonny to be a vibrant personality not locked down by his lineage." However, once the audience noticed this anomaly, the topic of what is Sonny Drysdale's real last name appeared throughout letters to the editor and fan clubs of that era. One reader's letter asked, "Is his name long or short? Is it German or English?" CBS replied very simply, "He has no last name." Interestingly, the actors also discussed this on set. 2. Max Baer Jr., The Hillbillies Casino Dream. Max Baer Jr. was not just tied to the role of Jethro, he was also the holder of the sub-licensing rights for the Beverly Hillbillies brand. From those rights, a bold idea was born to open a full-scale Hillbillies-themed casino in Nevada, complete with a nearly 200-foot oil derrick as its icon. When presenting the plan, Baer told investors, "I don't want an ordinary casino. I want a place where people walk in and recognize the Hillbillies immediately." Someone responded, "You mean a real oil derrick?" Baer nodded. Exactly. The more attention it grabs, the better. The project initially received much praise, but to turn the idea into reality, he had to jump through hoops for permits, negotiate land, and deal with the town council. One official once said, "Great idea, but we need to rethink that." Oil derrick, Baer just laughed. Without the derrick, what's the point of the Hillbillies? While pushing the casino project, Baer also pursued another plan, seeking the rights to Madonna's song, "Like a Virgin," for use in a dark comedy project he was writing. Although the casino was never completed exactly as he dreamed. The story of Bear's ambition shows he was never boxed into the role of Jethro. He was always looking to do something bigger, even if it meant pushing boundaries that Hollywood and Nevada had never tried before. 1. Barbie Ellie Mae and the Mattel lawsuit. It all started when Donna Douglas saw a new toy on the shelf, an Ellie Mae doll produced by Mattel. The image on the box was a black and white photo of her, but it had been used without any permission. Douglas recalled I looked at it and said, "Wait a minute, that's my face." When she asked her lawyer, she got a direct answer. "They didn't ask you." At the time, Mattel argued they were only recreating the character and not using her personal likeness. In one exchange, a company representative said, "We respect Ms. Douglas, but this is a product model." Douglas's lawyer countered, "Then why is her photo on the box?" This question shifted the conversation and a lawsuit was quickly filed in court. A crew member remembered Donna didn't want to fuss. She just didn't like the way they used her image without asking. When the case hit the press, many analysts predicted Mattel would pursue a long battle, but in the end, both sides chose a gentler solution. An out-of-court settlement with the details kept private. The incident ended quietly, but it marked a rare occasion where an actor from the series directly confronted a major toy corporation. And those are the strangest secrets behind the Beverly Hillbillies. If you used to watch this show back in the days of black and white TV, or if any detail in this video surprised you the most, please leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss the next part. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.